Hi everybody, Dr. Joe Dispenza here. The formula is a combination of brain coherence and heart coherence, and when you combine those two, you have a more effective ability to be able to affect the body, your mind, and ultimately your life. Coherence in the brain and coherence in the heart is literally a thought away. And if you and I can do it without any external substance, without anything in our environment, I think we begin to become freer. And when we master our emotions, we master our creations. I hope to see you in my future. Hi everybody, Dr. Joe here. Thank you for coming back. I want to just review a couple things to fill in some of the gaps for you. I know that in that last episode, I gave you a lot of content. So I want to frame it in a way that fits into your practice of the meditation that you've been doing. So then I said that the hormones of stress cause us to narrow our focus on the material world because the arousal of those chemicals causes us to pay attention to what's causing it. And we become very object focused, very materialistic, because the hormones of stress heighten our senses. And it causes us now to become more aware of our body, more aware of the environment, and more aware of time. And so when you've been doing your meditation, and I've asked you to take your attention off your body and go from somebody to a nobody, to take your attention off the people in your life that you identify with, and to go from a someone to a no one, to no longer think about the objects or things in your life, from your cell phone, your computer, your car, to all the elements that you are associating with that are known. You're going to go from something to nothing. If you're not thinking about where you're sitting, where you live, where you work, where you need to be, you're going to go from somewhere to nowhere. And if you're not thinking about the predictable future or the familiar past, you're going to go from sometime to no time. The act of you practicing that and taking your attention off of everything known, we could say that you are disinvesting all of your attention and energy out of this three-dimensional reality, out of the known, and putting it on the unknown. And so you've been practicing becoming pure consciousness. And it is the act of opening your awareness. When I ask you to open your awareness into the blackness, there's a reason for that. Because when you go from a narrow focus to a broad focus or an open focus, and you take your attention off the material world and put it on nothing, when you are no longer focusing on the known and broadening your focus and putting it on the unknown, you're putting your attention on nothing. In fact, you are tuning in to energy and frequency. Now, we learned that when people did this properly, when they broadened their focus and they were sensing space, the act of sensing space caused them to stop thinking and stop analyzing. Now, when they stopped thinking and analyzing, they stopped activating those circuits in their brain that was causing their brain to fire incoherently. And when they did this properly, when they were sensing instead of thinking and analyzing, they began to change their brain. Now, let's talk about how they did this. I want to talk to you about a simple understanding of brain waves. When you're living by the hormones of stress, and I said you're in that aroused state, your brain moves into a brainwave pattern called high beta brainwaves. Now, high beta is that alarm state, is that emergency state, that's the aroused state. But normal beta brainwave patterns is like most of you right now. You're listening to me right now. There's no danger, there's no threat, and your brain's job is to create meaning or order between what's going on in the outer world and what's going on in your inner world. And so your brain has a lot to keep track of. Your senses plug you into the three-dimensional reality. Think about it. If you couldn't see, if you couldn't hear, you couldn't smell, you couldn't taste, you couldn't feel, you would have no experience of the three-dimensional reality. So your senses plug you into the three-dimensional reality. By the same means, When you're under the hormones of stress and there's an arousal, the senses are heightened. And when that occurs now you got to pay more attention. You're more vigilant. So in that kind of state where you're processing information, everything you're seeing right now, everything you're listening to and hearing, what you're feeling, what you're smelling, your brain's got a lot to keep track of. And as it processes all this information and you're relaxed in your environment and you're awake, your brain functions in what's called beta brainwave patterns. If I said to you, there's a test that you have to take at the end of this course, your brain would perk up a little bit more and you would move into what's called mid-range beta. In high-range beta, it's 3 times as high as low-range beta, and that's the emergency state. And in that high beta state, that's when you're shifting your attention from one person to one problem, to one object, to one place, to one thing, to another meeting, to another problem, to your past, to your future. And you activate these circuits and the brain fires incoherently in a high beta state. And people get stuck in that state. It's like driving your sports car in first gear on the freeway. So when you broaden your focus and you begin to sense nothing but space, the act of sensing and feeling space causes you to stop analyzing and thinking. And we saw the brain waves start to slow down from that high beta brain wave to a mid-range beta to a low-level beta. And all of a sudden, they started to move into what's called alpha brainwave patterns. Now, in alpha brainwave patterns, you tend to be less preoccupied with your outer environment. Think of beta with your attention on your outer world. In alpha, all of a sudden you start paying attention to your inner world. This is the realm of imagination. Think of alpha as a creative state. And when you're in beta, you hear a voice in your head talking to you. That voice in your head is called the default mode network. That's the voice, the chatter that's always talking to you. When you move into alpha, your inner world starts becoming more real than your outer world, and the brain tends to see in pictures and images. You're more creative, you're more imaginative. Now in alpha, it's a slower brainwave state because you're all of a sudden forgetting about your environment. You could hear it, but you're paying attention less to it. If there's music filling the space, or you have earplugs in, as I said earlier in earlier episodes, it's less information coming in, your brain waves will slow down even more. If you're not eating, if you're not tasting, if you're not smelling, if you're not up and moving around and experiencing and feeling, and your body is still in one place, it makes sense then all of a sudden now there's less sensory information coming into your brain waves will slow down because they're processing less information. And as you sense space and your brain waves move into alpha, we notice something really important. The act of sensing space and opening your awareness not only changed our brains into alpha, but all of a sudden we started seeing those different compartments of the brain that were once subdivided because of the arousal of the stress hormones and your quick attention shifting. All of a sudden, those different compartments began to unify. Different communities that were subdivided, different networks began to synchronize and form larger communities and larger networks. And think about this. What sinks in the brain starts to link in the brain. In other words, the brain started functioning in a more holistic state. And now the brain moved into alpha brainwave patterns, but not just any type of alpha brainwave patterns, very coherent and orderly alpha brainwave patterns. And we saw the front of the brain talking to the back of the brain. The right side of the brain started talking to the left side of the brain, and the brain started resonating into a more holistic state. And when the brain starts firing in that orderliness, you start feeling more like yourself than you have in a very long time. We could say now, your brain is getting more orderly. And as you sense nothing but space, people think that they're sensing nothing. But I want you to think about this. The quantum field is an invisible field of energy, of frequency, of information that connects and unifies everything physical or material. And its signature is order. It is wholeness. It is oneness. And as people don't know this, as they're sensing nothing but space, they begin to entrain their autonomic nervous system to start to unify with that unified field. And all of a sudden, the nervous system starts functioning more orderly. And then all of a sudden, we started seeing certain people feeling so relaxed, feeling so safe, feeling so connected that their body felt safe enough to relax even more, and the body starts to fall asleep into a light sleep, and the person is awake, and that's called theta. And in theta now, a very slow brainwave pattern, if the body is asleep and the mind is awake, and we've conditioned the body to be the mind habitually and emotionally, that's the moment the body is no longer the mind. And the door between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind is wide open to information. And this is when we can rewrite a program. This is when we can lay down a new track. This is when we could begin to rehearse a new program so that we begin to subconsciously change our unwanted habits and behaviors. And we have great measurements of people in that theta state where they are reprogramming their nervous system and reprogramming their brain and body into a new future. So in theta then, when the body is asleep and the mind is awake and we're suggestible to information, suggestibility is your ability to accept, believe, and surrender without any analysis to what you're giving it, what's being inputted into the nervous system. So then the whole purpose of meditation then, number 3, the third definition, is to get beyond the analytical mind. And what separates the conscious mind from the subconscious mind is the analytical mind. And when people learn how to regulate their brainwaves and slow them down, now they're entering the operating system where they can rewrite a program, where they can lay down a new track, when they can begin to rehearse and install new circuitry and write down a new program. So that's the purpose of meditation. And so the act of broadening your focus, going from a narrow focus to a broadened focus, going from a convergent focus to a divergent focus, the act of sensing nothing but space, broadening your awareness, starts to create brain coherence. And when the brain starts functioning in a more orderly and coherent way, and it begins to synchronize and those different compartments of the brain start working together, there comes a moment where the two hemispheres of the brain start to synchronize into balance. And the union of polarity, the union of opposites, the union of duality is called wholeness. And now we are creating from wholeness instead of from lack or separation. And this is where it gets exciting, because when a person does this properly, and they can practice it. Our research shows that people can change their brain waves in 1 second, in 4 seconds, in 5 seconds, in 12 seconds, in 13 seconds, in 19 seconds. Why? Because they understand the process of getting beyond themselves. So why is that important for you? Because up until this point, whether you know it or not, you have begun the process of practicing brain coherence, the first part of the formula. And so when you open up your awareness in your next meditation, I'm going to ask you, as if you had no eyes, no ears, no body to feel, to smell, to taste, as if you were just an awareness, I'm going to ask you to sense this blackness, and I'm going to ask you to sense its depth. I'm going to say, how far can your awareness go into endless space? And all I want you to do is sense its infinite depth. I'm going to ask you to become aware that there's infinite blackness on both sides of you. And all I want you to do is broaden your focus and to sense it, to feel it, to stay connected to it. And the act of opening your awareness and sensing space slows your brain waves down. I'm going to ask you to become aware that there's infinite space behind you. And the act of sensing that infinite space behind you causes your brain to start to fire more orderly. We've measured this thousands of times. And as if you were just an awareness in that blackness, I'm going to say to you, now it's time to become nobody, no one, no thing, no where, and no time. And take your attention off of everything known and to invest it into the unknown. And like investing into a bank account, the longer you linger in the unknown, the more you create possibilities in your life. And if you find your mind returning to your body, to your pain, to your drives, to your emotions, to your habits, to thinking about certain people or objects or places or things in your known predictable reality, to thinking about the familiar past or the eventual future, Simply become aware that your attention is on the known, investing back into this three-dimensional reality. Stop, relax, return back to the present moment, and unfold back into possibility, into the blackness. Now that blackness, I know some of you are thinking, what is this? So then the quantum field is an invisible field of energy and information that exists beyond this space and time. There's no bodies there. There's no people there. There's no objects. There's no things. There's no places. There isn't even any time. So then think about this. Take away all the bodies, all the people, all the objects, all the things, all the places in this universe. Take away the Earth, the moon, all the planets, the moons on those planets. Take away the sun. That means the light from the sun goes. Take away all the stars. There goes all the light from the stars. Take away all the galaxies. Take away everything physical or material in this known universe. The only thing you're left with is space, infinite blackness, a vacuum. But just because you can't see something doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Now, as you broaden your awareness into this blackness, I want you to understand that you are connecting to frequency and to energy. And when you do this properly and you sense nothing but space, and you learn how to change your brain waves into alpha and theta and more coherent patterns, you start to suppress activity in the memory bank of the neocortex, the autobiographical self. Remember, this is your connection to everything known or you've experienced in your three-dimensional reality. And as you suppress neurological activity in your thinking brain, our research shows that your awareness or energy moves right into the brain underneath your thinking brain, called the limbic brain, the seat of your autonomic nervous system. Now you are learning how to be conscious in your subconscious mind. Now, delta brainwaves is deep sleep. That's when your body's in a restorative state. So we want to learn how to regulate your brainwaves and slow them down so you can linger in that place where you're half awake and half asleep and learn how to rewrite programs. So then, practicing this over time. If you find your mind going to somewhere or to some place and you get frustrated, you're going to drive your brain into beta brainwave patterns. Just become aware that you're doing that. Stop, return back to the present moment, unfold back into that blackness or sense that blackness. You may start thinking about how long the music's going to go or what you're going to do when the meditation's over. Become aware that you're doing that. That's a victory. Disinvest your attention and energy out of that known future and bring it back to the present moment and unfold back into that blackness. That's a victory. If you start getting frustrated or impatient and you start thinking about events in your life that created that, you're siphoning energy out of the present moment into the past. Just become aware that that's a habit, an unconscious habit that you do all the time. Simply return back to the present moment. And if you keep practicing this, just like training an animal, sooner or later your body's going to surrender to a new mind. And when it does, there's a liberation of energy. We have measured this. You are going to go from particle to wave, from matter to energy, and your body is freed from the chains of the familiar past and the predictable future, and it learns how to relax into the sweet spot of the generous present moment, the unknown. That is the perfect place to create from. And once we get there, by the end of this particular series, we're going to teach you how to create from the field, from that unified field, instead of from matter. And when you do that properly, you no longer have to play by the rules of three-dimensional reality. You no longer have to go anywhere and get it. Because when there's a vibrational match between your energy and some possibility in the quantum field, and you're creating from the field instead of from matter, now you are the vortex. Now you will begin to draw the experience to you. Why? Because you're connected to the source where everything physical exists. And so learning how to do that now you no longer have to wait 30 years to go get it. You will begin to create experiences equal to a vibrational match. And when this process starts, it gets to be fun, whether you're working on abundance, whether you're working on health, whether you're working on a mystical experience, it's the same exact formula. But if it requires a clear intention, coherent brain, and an elevated emotion, a coherent heart, let's talk about in the next episode how to create heart coherence. In the meantime, I hope you enjoy the next meditation.
Eyes closed. Take a breath. And relax. Your body feel your body and relax it. Slow it down. And relax. Into nothing. And one slow, steady breath through your nose, all the way to the top, and hold it, let it build, and exhale. Relax and feel. And inhale through your nose to the top and hold it. And exhale. And relax. More. And inhale through your nose to the end, and hold it, let it build, and exhale. And relax your body. And feel and become aware of the infinite black space way out beyond you. How deep does the blackness go? Sense it. Stay aware of it. Stay connected to it. The infinite space. Beyond you. Become aware there's endless space on both sides of you. In the blackness, sense it. Stay aware of it. Feel your connection to it. The blackness. More. Stay there. Become aware. There's endless space. Behind you. Sense it. Feel your connection to it. Become more aware of it. The blackness. It's all around you. Sense it. The blackness. Sense more of it. And less of you. And dissolve your identity into an endless sea. Blackness. More. And lose yourself into nothing. It's all around you. Tune in to the blackness. Feel it. Notice it. Stay aware of it. Stay connected to it. Feel the blackness. Feel more of it. Less of you. And relax into nothing. More. Pay more attention to it. Less attention to you. And tune in to the blackness and feel. And now, slowly bring your awareness back to your body, to your environment, and to this time. When you're ready, you can open your eyes and come back to the material world. In this space and time.